Okay, welcome to episode 11 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I am your host, Sean Skahan. And before I introduce my next guest, I just want to let everyone know that we are in the in-season phase of Total Hockey Training on trainheroic.com. Just search Total Hockey Training. You'll find that. You get it for free for 7 days, and then it's $39 a month. Basically, if you're on a team right now and you're playing and you don't have a structured strength and conditioning program in place, this would be the perfect opportunity for that. And also, I just want to mention that I recently opened up my own sports performance business, Skahan Sports Conditioning, and the website address for that is skahansports.com. So I want to get into my next guest. Real brief, Tom Broback. Tom is a physical therapist and a strength and conditioning specialist in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. A lifelong athlete, Tom continues to develop his passions and knowledge of sports performance through a dedicated effort of research, commitment, and experimentation. Tom helps high school coaches keep their athletes happy and healthy through the power of exercise and education. Tom, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. That was a really good intro. It sounds just like the things that I love to do. Excited to talk shop, talk a little bit of hockey, some knee injuries, things like that. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. And how do I know Tom? Well, I was a podcast guest of Tom a few years back. And if you follow him on Twitter, he's becoming known as a I hate to say the word guru, but specialist, passionate about the knee, and he knows a lot about it. And he's the knee guy. So yeah, that sounds about right, correct?
It's so funny with like gurus or mentors or coaches because everyone has one. And then when
Mhm.
you look up to one, like they look up to somebody else and they looked at them. So it's just like it's always ever going. And you never feel like the person that you look up to, even though there's people behind you that start looking up to you, aspiring to be you, things like that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the name, but yeah, just I'm always curious about who's people's mentors were because it shapes them. And I know we have a common interest with Mike Boyle, and I'm sure
Yeah.
a few others out there as well. And it's just amazing how people can impact other people so much.
Oh, absolutely. So tell us about your path. What got you to where you are today?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. So growing up, when I was probably like 4 or 5, like started getting into sports. My parents really pushed us to like play as many sports as we wanted to. My siblings, I have 3 brothers, like we all tried to play as many sports as possible. My cousins, neighbors, friends, like we were obsessed. We watched sports, we played sports. That was just like a daily thing. Is like, can we get more? It was maybe even too much, but I think that's a good thing. So
Mhm.
growing up, it was just sports 24/7, like playing cards, playing in the backyard, watching TV, watching highlights on Sports Center, going to tournaments, things like that. So most of my childhood, a lot of happiness and time and energy and effort was put into sports. So throughout that time, like there were some highs and some lows, right? So I was able to, have some moderate success. I played on a lot of great teams. I had a lot of great coaches, great friends, a lot of like great memories, right? But there's also some struggles and some battles. For anyone that knows me, like I'm not the biggest guy in the world. Like I'm 5'8", maybe like 180 pounds now. Even growing up was even smaller. So I was never the biggest guy. Like I was pretty fast, pretty quick. Um, but when you're trying to play sports like football and basketball, and you're not the biggest guy out there, there's some challenges of that too. Along with that, I had a lot of respiratory issues growing up. I struggled with asthma, and that was just like a constant battle. Like every year, I'd miss like a week or two of school, which impacted sports, which impacted strength and conditioning, which impacted what team was I going to be on, and those kinds of things. And it was always frustrating because I just like didn't know what to do. You go to the doctor, they give you medicine, you go home, take the meds, sit on the couch for a week, and then go back when you stop coughing. So some of that at the time, like we just did was best. You go to the doctor, trust the doctor, and you did what they told you to do. So through that experience, I was like, okay, now that I know more about the human body, now that we know there's just so much more content and information and access to people out there now, it's like, okay, how would I have treated that differently? What are the things I could have done differently? What breathing drills could I have done? What exercises could I have done? What foods could I have eaten differently? How was my sleep? How was my stress? All of those kinds of things. So that kind of really pushed me into like the sports medicine field. I thought about athletic training. I've done some strength conditioning stuff, but then I landed on physical therapy because I had, I broke my ankle in high school and had exposure to physical therapy that way. So, and I still want to do kind of like the sports exercise thing, right? It's like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm not going to go play in the NFL. I'm not going to play in the NBA. What's like the next best thing? Oh, I can work with athletes, right? So I got into PT school at the U of M, did that, came out, started working in like a typical clinic. Saw a few athletes, like not as many as I wanted to, or people who are, the athlete word is so interesting because
Mhm.
some people define athletes as like you play on a team, you have a team jersey, you have team name, like you're an athlete if you're on like a real team, right? And other people, it's like, well, I like to play pickup basketball with my friends and I like to go on runs. Like I'm an athlete. And I like that definition more. People do athletic type stuff, golf, running, lifting, basketball, hockey, whatever you name it. So I want to work with those types of people. So started posting some stuff online, started my own podcast, started jumping on podcasts like these, started connecting with coaches, therapists, and eventually other athletes or people who had athletic goals, dreams, and endeavors, and started working people in that. And that's the capacity now is people with chronic knee pain who want to get back to their sports. That's what I've really focused on the last year and a half, 2 years. And it helps me a lot because it's what I love to do. And it also helps people in that position because they're working with someone who loves what they're trying to do is to get back to sports and not have to worry about their knee pain anymore.
That's phenomenal. That's a really good story. And you mentioned asthma. Like I had asthma
Yeah.
myself, and I had the inhaler with me at all the times. I was playing
Right.
football, whatever, wrestling, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how like when I moved to California back many moons ago, I didn't have asthma anymore. And it was I wasn't say it was the air quality, and maybe I grew out of it. Maybe my anxiety changed with, I was
Yeah.
always a nervous wreck before sports, and I always felt I had to have my inhaler nearby. And also, like you talked about breathing techniques, like I got into that diaphragmatic breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, I never needed my inhaler for I haven't had my inhaler for, I don't know, 25 years now, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't use mine at all either. And I think one issue with asthma is whether it's subconscious or you think about it, like you're the asthma kid, you're the inhaler kid, you're the sick kid. And
Yeah,
that kind of like builds in your mind a little bit or in your psyche or in your decisions or
absolutely.
just how you view, right? And it could be other people have different issues. Sometimes like, oh, you're like the skinny kid or you're the fat kid or you're the like the slow kid or you're the stupid. Like we have these negative connotations and they just build and build and build until you start just making decisions you don't even realize are driven by these subconscious things. And that's
Yeah,
why I think I care so much about physical health because there's times in my life where it's like I couldn't work out or I was told not to work out or not go play or not go be as physically active. And it's like, well, how is that going to help me? Like I'm already like this
hmm,
like dealing with like I'm short, I'm
stressors.
small,
Yeah,
like I'm trying to play these awesome sports that I love, but and yeah, these stressors, right?
hmm,
So the beauty of that though is when you have an issue, that can come like your superpower because you can do everything in your possible to overcome that issue and
hmm.
become great at it and knowledgeable and understanding and help others. So that's what I've always tried to do is, whether it's me dealing with my own knee pain or dealing with asthma or other obstacles I had in my life, how can I, super compensate for that and then make it turn into like a perceived strength and then help other people with the same issue.
I love that, and makes me think about we're create creatures of habit, and when you have something like asthma, your habit is to have that near you and obtain it whenever you want, whenever you need it. But then when you realize you break out of that habit, it's you know you can be scot free.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's sometimes for some people, like it's like a choice. Like, oh, am I gonna be happy or sad today? It's like I'm gonna be happy today. And
yeah,
you're gonna have all the same obstacles. And some people it just works where it's like, hey, I'm gonna make this choice. I know this is gonna be hard. I know this, or like, oh, I'm really scared to go do this. It's like, you know what? Every time I'm scared about this, like public speaking, every time after I feel great. I feel awesome. So I'm
right.
gonna get through this hard point and get out to the other side and feel better.
Yeah.
Because with like public speaking, like nothing bad ever happens. No one
Right.
like ever yells at you, or like you don't like lose your job, or it's like you get up there, you talk in front of people, and most of them aren't listening anyways. And
Right.
the ones that are listening, like, hey, you did a great job, I learned this, that, and the other thing, and you feel better after. So it's like, how do I
Yeah.
get through the after part? What tools do I have? What support system do I have? What mental fortitude can I build up? And it's hard. It's hard because it's easier just to go the other way and avoid some of those things.
Yeah. It does feel good when you achieve that thing that you're stressed out about and good things happen at the end. I could agree with you on that. It's a good feeling. And I think not a lot of people are willing to go out and do something like that, to stretch themselves, to be able to overcome a challenge or something that they want to do, but they don't have the balls to do it in the first place, and they put themselves out there. And I think that's a pretty great feeling when you're done with something like that.
It's hard to fail. It's hard to fail. Everything is recorded now. Everything like could be a video, could be go on the internet, could be talked about with a bunch of different people. It's really hard to fail now, especially in sports. It's easier just to, oh, I wasn't trying, or oh, I'm not gonna go off the team this year. Like it's really
Yeah.
easy to do that, right? It's really hard to go out there and throw an interception, lose the game, or to miss a wide open breakaway, or they get cut, from the team. It's really hard to put yourself in those vulnerable positions. But those things, if you use them right, can help build you as an athlete, as a person, as a human being. And if you do it right, it can and really transform who you are. I
Yeah.
believe so, at least. I'm sure you've seen that with your coaching.
I think it's more about once you get past the fear of what people think about you and realize that no one gives a
Yeah.
shit anyways. Like there's that initial fear of, am I going to look stupid, or I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to, no one's going to like me, blah blah blah. And once you get over that and realize that no one cares, like if people judge you, like who cares about them, like once you just, yeah, like it's in athletics and sports is putting yourself out there and doing what you want to do and be passionate about. I think that's the end goal, right?
Yeah, so a great example of this was my freshman year in high school. I ran track and I did the 400 for the first time. And forever, whoever has never run
Brutal.
the 400,
Oh.
yeah, I want to recommend it. So, but I went out like way too fast, so trying to keep up with everyone else. And coming around the home stretch, like my legs are just giving out, and I tripped and fell. And then I got up and crossed the finish line, super embarrassed. Like I wanted to go home, like just quit track. I'm like, that was really hard, and I fell, and everyone thinks like I'm slow or not good or whatever. To this day, not one person has ever brought that up to me, like a coach, teammate, parent.
Yeah.
Literally, no one even, when I tell the story, people don't even remember it. So,
Right. Yeah.
and then my senior year, I ended up, running a few varsity races and ran in sections and things like that. So it came full circle. But if you let a little bit of adversity, especially when you become an adult, or when you become an adult, it's really hard to try new things
Hmm.
because you forget what it's like to fail. Because
Hmm.
you usually do the things that you like to do, whether it's like your sport or if it's a hobby or work or whatever. So you're trying these new things, you start failing and say, "Oh, I want to give up. I want to quit." It's like, well, what if you would have done that your whole life? Just quit every time it got hard, or you tried
Yeah.
something new. You don't want to learn anything. You want to have grown. You want to have developed. You want to have, like, found these passions and these hobbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that
That's a cool
that
story.
even that word failure is kind of like, what are we actually
Yeah. I
talking
think I
about?
think a
But
lot of us can recall memories when they might have screwed up,
yeah,
whatever. And at the time, it was the worst thing that could possibly happen in the world. And then years
yeah,
later, no one remembers. I think that's puts things into
yeah.
reality, right? Yeah.
Yeah, one of my old coworkers said, like, can you name the most embarrassing moment for like somebody else? And it's like, no, like you
Yeah.
don't remember other people's embarrassing moments. You only remember yourselves. And usually when you recall them later, they're hilarious. Everyone's laughing, it's a good
Yeah.
time. They're laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah.
So it's like, and like the most fun people to be around are the ones who can laugh at themselves and put themselves out there and try and fail. And also the most successful ones, when you look at their track record, it's like, oh, you failed at this, you failed at that, you didn't do this well, you got cut from this. and it all shaped them into who they are eventually were. It's
Hmm.
just getting through that initial stuff is super hard. Like when I did my first podcast, I'm sure like 10 people listened, and I'm sure they
Hmm.
all thought it was terrible. But you just kept doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, and
Hmm.
you eventually get better.
Hmm.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And hopefully that's my plan right now. But let's talk a little bit about the knee. And
Perfect.
here's an observation. Obviously, we're both in Minnesota. It's going to start getting colder. Obviously, the summers here are unbelievable. If you're not from here, the summers are terrific. And you see a lot of people out there running. And a lot of times you see people who are trying to do what looks like running. Does that make sense? They might be, I was one of those people. Like I
Right.
was, I wanted to increase my zone two work. So I'm thinking, how about I go for a run? And I'd go for like 20 minutes. And, you know, my form was okay if I really, took a video of myself running, but there were times my knee would get sore. And so, I'm talking about the people who are out there running with one knee brace on and slogging through their runs. Like what, what I guess my question is like, what do you see wrong with that? Or do you think people are just running to run and are afraid to kind of look at, okay, maybe I need to be doing this because they love to run so much? Like, what are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, so I see that. I live in Minneapolis. I see that all the time. You
Mhm.
go on a lot of walks, and we'll talk about walking in a second. But I go on a lot of walks down by the river, and you see like when a runner goes by you, like they're a runner. They're so efficient, they're effortless, they know what they're doing, right? And
Right.
then there's a population of people, it looks like they're running to get in shape,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And running is this weird conundrum. It's the easiest thing to get into. You really just need a pair of shoes, right? But it's really hard to get good at and to master from a injury, preventing injury type. I think there's stats like anywhere from like 50 to 75% of runners get hurt every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to mess it up. It's easy to start, really easy to mess it up too. I think a lot of people don't fundamentally understand like what do I need to do to get in shape, whatever that means to them, whether it's playing hockey, playing basketball, or becoming a runner. So they just go to running because it looks cool. You can tell people about it. Um, it's just easy to get started into. I think a lot of people are afraid of, oh, I should go on like a 45-minute walk today, and then I should do some hill sprints, or I should go to the gym and get on the bike and do some interval work there. Some of those options where they're like, no, I'll just go on my 30-minute run and be good. No warm up, no foam rolling, no stretching, no strength training. There's sleeps. There's so many things that go into it too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of people, I don't want people to feel the pressure of if you want to get in shape, you have to run like
Mm-hmm.
long distance, 30, 40 minutes plus. You can, but it requires a certain amount of sacrifice and effort and thought into it. You can't just go out and run because most bodies aren't prepared for that.
That's a good
You
point.
see, you see kind of a similar pattern of
Oh,
people.
absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. And it's not just they might not be quote overweight. There's a lot of fit people who are running like not efficiently too. So it's yeah, everyone's body's different, obviously. So talk about walking. Like I love walking, and I really don't care if there's any you know perceived benefit to it versus not benefit to it, but walking is good for a lot of people.
Walking is so if you're 25 and under, like ignore this, like you're gonna think walking's dumb. I thought it was dumb, waste of time. Why would anyone go on a walk? Let's go play sports, let's go do something fun. But once you're an adult and it's like, okay, I need to get outside, I need to get some fresh air, I need to get off my phone, I
Hmm.
need to get my heart rate up a little bit. I need to get a little bit of sweat. If it's summer and going on a walk, like you need to get a little bit of sweat in. Walking is such an easy thing to do to
Hmm.
get all of those benefits, right? um and it's so there's like sprinting, jogging, and walking, right? And I see uh jogging as like has like a ton of like the return on investment is the lowest for jogging. I think walking and sprinting have really high returns on investment. And when you do them right and smart, like they're awesome for you.
Mhm.
Jogging, I think, just has a low return because you're not pushing yourself that hard, and there's just this high statistical injury rate. And the whole
Mhm.
goal of it is to become less hurt, to have better performance, to have better health, better lungs, better legs. And if you wind up getting hurt doing that, like why would we pick that option? Why
Right.
don't we think about the walk, like the walk sprint combo, or like the biking, ski erg, assault bike? There's so many options out there. You just got to find the
Mhm.
right one that works for you, in combination with the strength training, the mobility work, the sleep, stress, nutrition.
Mhm.
All of those things matter. You don't just have to do a 30-minute jog to take care of your health.
No, and jogging seems to me like it's too much in that medium zone. It's too much
Yeah.
in that medium zone, and it's not high enough, it's not low enough. So, yeah, that's interesting. It's just I just see the orthopedic concerns when I see people slogging through their runs and, like, man, their knee must be sore or their hip or whatever, like it's just you can see it just I don't know, you watching gait sometimes.
Yeah, no, you
Yeah.
see their knee, like uncontrolled valgus, right? Like they can't
Yeah.
even, or or they're again, like valgus or like supination, pronation of the foot and ankle, like that's not bad, but when it's uncontrolled, and they're putting just a lot of stress on it because they're, if you
Over and
calculate how many
over again.
steps you take, yeah, in a half
Yeah.
hour, and you're
Mhm.
going up hills, and again, I think people undervalue the skill of running, of like how
Mhm.
hard it is to actually do well and efficient, especially over a long period of time. Imagine like doing, it's a little bit different, but doing squats for 30 minutes. Like if you don't have great form, like you're gonna break down and you're gonna get tired, and usually things don't go well that way. So
Yeah.
the combination of, again, like we both know like how what important strength training is. I think too many people just they'd rather go on a jog. It's easier, it's simpler, they less to think about. But just learn a few things to do in the gym. Learn, one squat, one lunge, one deadlift routine that you like. Put in your accessories, and boom, you have a really good workout there.
Yep, that's a simple program. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. Okay, I want to this is a hockey training podcast. I want to talk about hockey a little bit. And so my experience through the years has been, knee injuries do happen in hockey. Most of the time they are a result of trauma, another player hitting another player in the
Right.
knee. Um, Sometimes, a skate could get caught in a rut on the ice. That stuff does happen. So what I've seen as well is previous knee injuries still lingering. And so this player might have had a grade 2 MCL years ago, and he still has his knee brace, and that
Mhm.
knee is not that knee is like a toothache, for a long period of his career.
Right.
He might be on the training table after a game of practice with ice in his knee, so like what are your thoughts on that? Previous injury is always a predictor of future injuries.
Right.
Talk about the knee in that regard, and what you think there.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into this, right? So the first problem with injuries is the average person, myself included, we don't do anything about an injury until we start feeling pain,
Hmm.
right? Like I know I twisted my ankle, but it doesn't hurt. I'm not gonna do any exercises for it. I know I banged my knee in the board, but you know what? Like it doesn't hurt yet. I'm not gonna do anything about it. When the onset of pain comes, it drives you to take action, which is a good thing, right? Like, okay, I need to do something to get rid of this pain. You can rest, you can ice it, you can take ibuprofen, you can do exercises. Obviously, I like the last one the best.
Hmm.
People are gonna do whatever it takes to get out of pain, and then once that pain goes away, they fall off the bandwagon pretty quick and go back to old habits, right? Like
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
like we're humans, we all do this. Not downplaying, like I do this too, and it's not always the best. So the problem with that is once pain goes away, that doesn't mean the knee's good, right? It doesn't mean it's fully healed. It doesn't mean you have your full motion, your full strength, your full balance, coordination. You're not 100. It doesn't guarantee you're 100%, right? So if you leave some of that on the table, if you're 90% and you just don't take care of that last 10, and 2 years later you're still taking care of that 10%, well, yeah, like there's this issue there, and you're just not going to fully trust your knee because you never did the work to get it back to 100%.
Hmm.
You've left some stuff on the table because you didn't have this driving factor, which for most people is pain. So we have that issue. The other issue we have is I think of injuries kind of like losing money from your bank account. If you have $100 in your bank account and an injury costs you $30, you're really going to notice that, right? But if you have $100,000 in your bank account and an injury costs you $30, you're barely going to notice it and you're going to get it back quickly, right? With interest, which is doing the right work. So the $100,000 is, are you consistently strength training throughout the year? Are you getting good sleep? Are you managing your stress? Are you eating a good diet? Are you enjoying the sport that you're playing? Do you have a good support system? All of those things. That builds your bank account way bigger. So when you have these small kind of dings and someone runs into your knee or knee hits a board, or you fall weird on it, you can recover a lot better from it. If you don't do any of those things, and if you do the opposite of those things, you're only gonna have $100 in your bank account, and every injury is really gonna pile up and accumulate, and you're gonna feel a lot more. So there's the other kind of like long-term, kind of like investment strategy, right? Of the more we have in our bank account, the less we're gonna feel these injuries. And then the third part, and there's probably more. The third part is just the psychological, kind of like we talked about with the asthma. Once you're an MCL kid or an ACL kid or a meniscus guy, like that sticks in your head for a long time.
Hmm.
And if you don't uh, work through that, if you don't work on it, progress it, deal with it, whatever you want to say, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. That's gonna maybe hold you back a little bit and think, oh, it's not fully healed. It's not fully right. I need help with that. I need to baby it. I need to take care of it. So there's the physical part, there's the kind of the long-term investing part, and then the psychological part. All those are three huge factors that can play into why is this kid icing his knee 2 years after his injury
Hmm.
when he's not having pain anymore.
Right. That's a great analogy about the bank accounts when you think about growing it and not losing it, right? And
Exactly.
yeah,
Because and people do this with knee surgery all the time. It just blows my mind. They want to go into surgery with like $100, and surgery is going to take $90 away. It's like you're going to feel that, right?
yeah,
But if you go into
absolutely.
surgery with $100,000, even if it takes 500 or $50,000, like you still have some wiggle room to go. So
Sure.
you're not going to go down as far. You're going to come up a lot faster because you've had this, and it's just like investing, right? You've done this investment, it's the interest is building, it's gonna do a lot better. But people like to play it so close to that zero line. It's like, yeah, no wonder your knee hurts. Like you didn't do anything 2 months out of surgery. Like what were you expecting?
Right. And I think
No.
going back to the knee brace, like that gives the athlete or the person um that confidence, I guess, in playing their sport, but there's underlying things.
Yeah.
You don't want the knee brace to be acting as, the knee joint, right? It's like they
Yeah.
have this
It's like,
protective mechanism. They think this is going to help them, years later, they still have a knee brace. And it's like, you know, then like the body gets used to having the knee brace when they play. So you have that kind of
yeah,
artificial stability, I guess, is what I'd say.
yeah,
Am I
it's
right
it's
there, or is that correct, or is that false, or what do you think?
yeah. So the knee brace is kind of like Bitcoin, right? You put $100 in Bitcoin, yeah, it might go up, but guess what? It might go down too. It's a
Right.
little bit more unstable. It's not quite the same as having, $1 million in the stock market, or having a house that's valued at $1 million, or having a business or an asset that's more stable, right? So with the knee brace, it plays a lot into the psychological piece. Like I've talked
Yeah.
to athletes, and I know they can't play without it because
Yep.
it's purely mental. And that again, that's not good or bad. Ideally, we wouldn't have it. So it's like it's not ideal, but I'm not gonna sit there and judge the athlete. Like if you're at this point, it's your senior season, like you need this to get through the last three games.
Go
Like,
for it.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's some wiggle room there, right? But if you're wearing, and the worst is like little less hockey, but other sports like ankle braces. People wear ankle braces like 10 years after they sprain their ankle. It's like, what are we doing?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Also, if you're gonna wear a brace, like I want to see your rehab program, because if you're not doing a rehab program along with wearing the brace, like you're cheating yourself because you have that artificial support. You
Yeah.
have like something isn't totally right with your knee, and you need to get that fixed or addressed to help it, right? Um, the other kind of like a little bit more extreme example is people will point to professional athletes. Oh, that person wears a knee brace, that person wears an ankle brace, that person wears, it's like they're doing this for a living, like, and they are they're worth millions of dollars. The franchise they're playing for is, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It's completely different. It's like their livelihood. It's a completely
Yep.
different situation than, a college kid coming off the bench, or, like a third liner in high school who's like trying to get a college scholarship or even like make the varsity team, things like that. Like, you have your body the rest of your life. Like, you need to take care of it now, because guess what? This is not going to get easier.
Right. And I think the athlete should want to get to a point where they don't need the brace because they put all the work in, like you mentioned, everything
Yeah.
cumulatively, and then their investment is way bigger now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's
Healthy. Yeah.
exactly. It's just
Yep.
that it's just this investment idea that we're going to run with today. It's like, what are you putting into your portfolio?
Hmm.
Is it a bunch of stable stuff that has good growth? Is it a bunch of Apple stock, a bunch of Microsoft stock, a bunch of Amazon stock? Or is it a bunch of Bitcoin and like
Yeah.
GameStop a couple years ago like went crazy?
Sure.
Do you have a
Sure.
bunch of just like crazy random stuff? And when you open it, I just watched The Big Short. Have you seen that?
No.
It's about the housing collapse in 2008, but they bring in like a bunch of good actors, like Ryan Gosling's in it, Steve Carell. There's a few like all like big names, and they just kind of go through all these, like, this is a little above my financial understanding, but like just like the mortgage bonds, and they're all just filled to junk. It's like, is all your stuff filled to junk, or is it all really stable and good? And
Right.
like, I'm
Yep.
sure when the kids come in, before you even talk to them, which ones are up till 3 a.m. play video games. You know which ones are eating McDonald's, every night for dinner. You know which ones uh are coming to the lifts, right? Like, it all adds up. And in the
Yep.
end, if you there's always going to be these elite athletes that can do anything and get away with it, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and if you don't know if you're one of them or not, like, you're not, right? If you have any kind of disadvantage, you're a little bit slower, you're not as big, you're not as tall, you're not as quick, like, what are you doing to make up for that? And there's a
Yeah.
million things you can do. And the beauty
Absolutely.
of podcasts like this, of the internet, of Twitter, of Instagram, you can figure out these things easier now than ever.
For free.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
like, when I started getting into this stuff, like, it was hard. And I can't imagine when you got into stuff, not to
Yeah.
play the age card here, like, it must have been hard. Like, it was probably magazines, right?
Yeah.
Or
It
knowing
was. It
people,
was seminars. It was
seminars, yeah.
conferences, and doing what we're doing over the phone, talking to other
Yeah.
coaches, mentors. And the internet was just coming up. I remember testosterone.net was a big one
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Charles was on there every week. But yeah, that's how it was. But now it's almost overwhelming. Like, you have to have a good filter nowadays, right?
The filter part's hard, because what's popular isn't always what's best for you,
Right.
even if it's the best for
Yep.
other people. And that's where it gets really confusing,
Hmm.
because you're not going to know unless you try. And in trying might take 6 months or a year. And it's like, oh, shoot, that wasn't the best thing for me. And everyone kind of goes through it. You try, you fail, you try, you fail, you try. Oh, this works well. Oh, this person, I like what they said, I'm going to follow more of them. This makes sense. Oh, they worked with all these people, I like what they're doing. That makes sense. Let me try some of that. So the filter part is hard, because what's popular isn't always right. And what's popular might work for some people, but also might not work for you. We're
Hmm.
talking about knees, right? A lot of people know knees over toes guy, right? Some of the stuff, pretty good. Other stuff, like, I don't think always works for everybody.
Hmm.
So it's like, if you're just blindly and go do anyone's program, right? If you
Hmm.
go look at one of my videos on Twitter and you just start doing it without any context, it may or may not help you. Same thing,
Right.
if someone walked into your gym, like, oh, that workout looked good, and they go do it on their own, it
Right.
depends where they're at in their physical journey. If is it going to help them or not, or what are their goals too?
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Do you get hockey kids with like their goals for training are not aligned with what you think is best for them?
Sometimes, but I'm lucky to have kids who come in and kind of just will execute what I asked them to do.
Yeah,
No,
because you
and it,
explain it. You explain the purpose behind it.
oh yeah, absolutely. This is
Yeah,
why we're doing this.
Yeah.
whether it's warm up, plyometrics, sprint training, or Olympic lift variation, strength training, whatever. It all comes down to why. And even like, obviously pros want to know why. And a lot of pros, like a lot of pros believe in themselves and know they have the answer to it, which is great. But I also think kids they're like sponges as well. They want to know,
Oh, sure.
and
Yeah.
they're just growing kids, and they just want to get better. That's what it comes down to, right? They just want to improve their
Yeah.
performance and stay healthy and happy, like it said in your bio. I like that. That's great. Awesome, Tom. So tell us about what you're up to now. Where everyone can find out about you more and everything.
Yeah. So right now I work with people with chronic knee pain, typically meniscus type tears, people who don't want to have surgery. They want to find a different option. They want to get rid of their pain. They want to trust their knee again, get it stronger, be more confident. I work remotely with people, so I can work with anyone, anywhere in the country or even the world. Um, and regardless of your sport, if you like hockey, if you like basketball, if you like football, if you like running, like I've worked with someone like you before and I can get you better. So all of my information mostly right now is on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. You can also I have a newsletter I send out. I send out a daily email, so you can subscribe to that. All that information again found on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm a little bit everywhere.
Yeah.
But my goal is to help people who are like me, who've had injuries and they want to get back to their sport and they want to get better at their sport. And they don't want to go the traditional medical route of having surgery, of having injections, taking time off. They just want to get stronger and get better so they can go back to doing what they love.
That is awesome. And like, I don't think that anyone should want to go the traditional medical route. Like, no one wants to get
Mm.
surgery. And there's a way to not get surgery. And I think
Right.
it's a process. And a lot of people need to understand that it is a process. And a lot of ducks have to be in a row. And then once you once you get every level, you can be 100%. And I think,
Eh,
yeah, and I think we're in a world where we think surgery can only fix certain things. And it's like, well, not necessarily. I mean,
right.
yeah, there are some knee injuries where there has to be a surgery that takes place, but um
Let me
most
jump
of,
in. For those people, you don't want to have a second surgery or a third or a fourth because
right.
I've seen that
Yep.
route, right?
Absolutely.
So you're all the same things apply. You just had a different starting point to the people who haven't. So to everyone who has had knee surgery, you don't want to have a second, third, and fourth one. I already know it. Like I've
Hmm.
talked to too many people. It's like, what can we do to avoid this?
Yeah,
And there are ways. And it's all
absolutely.
about that investing that we talked about this whole podcast. What are you doing to invest in yourself? Whether it's strength training, rehab, sleep, nutrition, all that stuff, it all matters.
Absolutely. I love that, Tom. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. This was great. And this is it's a lot of fun for me. A lot of
I
good
I
stuff.
love it. Yep, me
Yeah.
too. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Keep crushing, doing what you're doing. Glad the gym's going well, and I'm excited to hear more of these. So get more good guests on for sure.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tom, and I appreciate your time.
All
Take
right,
care,
take
man.
care.
Appreciate it.